Hello and welcome to another special episode on the Everyday Joy podcast. I'm not sure if you've had a chance yet to listen to the 30-minute bonus episode that was released on Mother's Day not too long ago, but I hope you get a chance to have a listen. Jackie, my guest today, she's also in that conversation, so I know you'll get a lot out of it. I'm your host, Joy Ravella. Today, we are talking about mercy. So let's get into today's verse.
Today's verse is Luke 6:36 from the Contemporary English Version. Have pity on others, just as your Father has pity on you.
Once again, I have got the amazing Jackie here in studio with me.
Hello.
Yesterday, we bonded over being an Enneagram Type 3.
Yes, we did.
Which I've just discovered is the most popular Enneagram type.
That's amazing. I never would have thought that.
But it makes sense because a lot of people are achievement driven. So I guess we're in the majority. And listen more to yesterday's episode where we talk about following the rules and the impact of learning and growing. But today we're talking about pity, which isn't exactly a word we generally want to associate ourselves with.
Nope. Pity is one of those words we don't like. It is closely associated with shame. I think for a lot of us that we feel if somebody's pitying us for something, we've done something shameful or we've got something to be ashamed of. So as I was prepping for today, I was like, I'm going to look at some other versions, see what it says, see where we can go with this pity thing. It actually, there's lots of words, in place of pity in different versions or translations. The NLT version says be compassionate. The ERV version says give love and mercy. And the NIV says be merciful. And I think I liked landing on mercy.
Yeah, me too.
Mercy.
Me too. What does mercy mean to you?
Well, I'm going to take a entry out of the Cambridge Dictionary.
Oh, yes, okay.
And say that mercy is kindness that makes you forgive someone, which I think is really, really beautiful because if somebody's offended you or done wrong by you, it's a kindness to forgive them, and that's what mercy is.
It's choosing to show that grace, that compassion when you'd be well within your rights to not,
Absolutely.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, my first impression of this verse is, wow, mercy is powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I've been on the receiving end of that when I'm like, oh my God, like bracing myself for that reprimand, bracing myself for the consequence, and someone turns around and says, you know what, I forgive you.
Yeah, no biggie.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, it's so incredibly powerful, and that's what this verse says. I'll read it out again. I'll read out the NLT version. You must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. And we really can look to God for that role model. And when we run low with our mercy tank, we can get a fresh top up from God, who constantly shows us so much compassion and mercy. So I think that's my first impression of this verse. How has this come alive in your world, Jack?
Yes. So, and I think we're both going to talk to this today. I have a primary school experience that was actually a really good or really horrific example of somebody not showing mercy.
Yeah. And that was something we really wanted to focus in on today's episode, because as beautiful as mercy is, it is equally devastating when it's not shown.
Absolutely.
And so we thought to ourselves, let's bring some stories where mercy wasn't shown to demonstrate the power of it. So you've got one school story. I've got another school story.
Let's discuss primary school trauma.
Let's get into it. Okay, so you've got a story with the L recorder.
Yes, I do. So shout out to Mrs. Cowley, my grade 2 primary school teacher. We were, as many or most, if not all, primary school students in Australia do, we were learning the recorder in class.
Our poor parents, yes.
Our poor parents. And we're all sitting around our little, pod desk groups, and Mrs. Cowley during the lesson says, right, I'd like all the boys in the class to pick up their recorder and play the song. And I'm a rule follower. We discussed this yesterday. So I put my recorder down on the desk and put my hands together and sat there, quietly and looking at everybody else, doing the right thing, and being like very pleased with myself, not even thinking about it, just I'm doing the right thing in my recorder class. The girls around me all picked up their recorders and whilst not playing them, sort of like imitated playing them. Mm-hmm. And Mrs. Cowley, in a moment of teacher frustration or some kind of angst, yanked me out of my seat and whacked me across the bum with her hand. Slightly legal in those days. But yeah.
And you were doing the right thing.
And I was doing the right thing. So, this was this horrible, and she never apologised. She never recognised that she was doing the right thing. And, I was this, shy, rule-following little, grade 2 that didn't feel they had the voice to say, hey, miss, you've got it wrong. It was, there was no mercy there.
When I was 6 years old, something about being 6 years old, I think. I had a teacher as well, Miss Shepherd, and I moved around schools a lot, so I was already quite a shy child. I think I went to about 6 different primary schools over the 6 years of being in primary school. So a new school every year, essentially.
Yep, I did 4.
Yeah.
So
moving around a lot makes you quite shy, makes you not want to rock the boat too much.
Absolutely.
And there was this one day where I just felt like I was flying, and it was our Christmas craft day, and the teacher had set up these different stations. I think about 20 of them, and each station had a different Christmas craft, and you just had to work your way through them all. And I love crafts. Like, I do sewing, I love cooking, I love gardening. Like, crafts is like my thing. So even at that age, I was twice as fast as my peers, and I was moving through all the stations very quickly. I was getting all excited. And I remember at one station, the instruction was to use a bit of glitter to decorate a little Christmas tree. So I did this big star, and I used all the glitter, and I was moving on. And then the teacher said, stop, everyone look at me. And she looked straight at me when she said this, even though she was asking the whole class to be silent.
Uh-oh.
And she said, who used all the glitter? Ooh. Now, here's the thing. I didn't know that I was not meant to use all the glitter. And I was such a rule-following kid. I just put my hand up and I said, yes, it was me. And then the teacher got everyone in the classroom to stand in a line, asked me to sit down in the corner of the classroom, and she said, well, everyone, you can all say thank you to Joy for using up your glitter. And one by one, all 27 students stood in line and one by one looked me in the eye and said, thank you, Joy.
Oh gosh, it's so horrible.
I was shown.
So horrible. Complete lack of mercy.
Yeah. And that's the point that I want to get to. Here we are, much later on in life, and we can still recall a time in our lives where we weren't shown mercy.
Yep.
And the thing is, the Bible talks about showing mercy because of two reasons. Number one, God was merciful towards us. But I think the other reason it stresses it so many times is because not showing mercy is just as powerful as showing mercy.
Absolutely. Yep. And he wants us to be like him. He wants us to show that mercy. We don't know that moment, whether we're showing mercy or not showing mercy, we don't know the lifelong impact that can have on somebody's behaviours, their thoughts about themselves, the way they operate themselves in the world. We don't know that impact, and how much better is it to land on the side of God, on behaving like God, and show mercy rather than not.
You know, it's interesting. As I was telling Jackie this story, I felt myself being transported back to that classroom. I can close my eyes and remember the cold, hard cabinet behind my back, the sticky linoleum floor I was sitting down on, my hands sweaty and wringing together, the tears running down my face, my classmates towering over me, some of them quite excited to have the chance to bully me a little bit more. And I've shared a bit about my bullying story, especially for my skin color. So it really was a harrowing incident, and it still affects me today. I was saying to Jackie a little bit afterwards that even today, I am so nervous and scared when it comes to using up supplies. I am like absolutely pedantic when it comes to double checking with someone. Are you sure I can use this? Are you sure I can use all of it? And I ask 300 times, and it all traces back to this one moment. Mercy is so powerful. So for you today, if there's someone who has wronged you and they're really sorry about it, or if they're trying to make amends, despite what they've done to you, would you be able to show them the kind of mercy and compassion that God shows you every day? I think out of our own strength, it can be really hard to do that, especially if we feel very hurt and disillusioned about the whole thing. But I think if we take a moment to stop and remember how much God has shown His mercy towards us when we didn't deserve it, when He every single day gives us a fresh dose of joy and kindness and love and hope, even though we don't deserve it, I think out of that state, out of that perspective, we'll find it within ourselves to show that mercy to others. I struggle with this a lot myself, and I have found that going back to the cross, going back to what God has done for me, really helps me realign to God's merciful character. So I hope that today, if you have the opportunity to show mercy, that you will, because it's powerful. Well, that wraps up today's episode on the Everyday Joy podcast. If you haven't already, do make sure you like, follow, subscribe, recommend this podcast to a friend, listen to it together, have debrief chats about it later on in the day. It's a great way to stay connected, but to also unpack a verse day by day, verse by verse, and discover a little bit of joy every day.